This is a direct Akkad exclusive.
Okay, all right. Shalom, Shabbaton, Shalom.
Shabbaton Shalom.
We are back. We are observing the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Feast of Unleavened Bread. We have a little lesson for you today. We're not going to go on too long. We want to, bring out a specific point of emphasis in regards to Feast of Unleavened Bread, because we always want to remember the spiritual significance of these days and times. The Most High has given us these days and these times to help us to understand all the things that He has done for us. And so He gives us these days and times that we rehearse and we recall and remember year by year. And He's given us all of these kind of physical things that we do. But we have to understand that all of these physical things that He's given us to do help us to understand something greater from a spiritual perspective. Okay, so we want to always remember that, and that's what we want to try to think about even now. So, last night we kept the Passover. Okay, there came a time in history when the whole feast is referred to as Passover, right? But we know that Passover is actually a moment in time, and we really deal with, in terms of the feast of Unleavened Bread, right? The 7 days that we abstain from leaven. But I wanted to just real quick look at the word Pesach, because it helps us to begin to think about what we want to go into in terms of the lesson for today. Because, Feast of Unleavened Bread gives us a very important lesson. And that lesson is in regards to sanctification. Sanctification. The Feast of Unleavened Bread teaches us a wonderful lesson about sanctification. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. But first, what we want to do is go ahead and look at the word Pesach in the ancient. So let me go ahead and pull up my whiteboard over here. Let's see here. Let's see here. Okay, so Pesach in the Hebrew is a pay. The pay. Here, this got to go inside here like this. It's a samech. All right, and it's a chet.
Get your pencils and learn something.
And it's a chet. Okay, and so in the ancient, the pay is an open mouth. So open mouth. Okay, and the samech is thorns. That's around. Thorns. Like this. And the chet is a tent wall or a fence. Kind of looks like this. Chet. Alright. Here, like this. Okay, so when we look, that was difficult. Okay, so when we
pretty good. You got a sideway ladder, antenna, and a rock.
Yeah,
I'm just joking.
Yeah, so when we look at this over here, let's take this off of here. Let's see if I put this on. How do I undo this part here?
There you go. He ain't bad.
All right, so when we look at this, right? So the mouth, the open mouth, the mouth can either blow, the open mouth blows, or it speaks, right? So we have the mouth, the open mouth that speaks. We're talking about Pesach, Passover, right? So the open mouth has that, it gives you the idea of speaking, pronouncing a thing, right? The thorn, it can pierce. It is something that is sharp. A shield of thorns actually can protect from predators, right? It can protect from harm. So we have the idea of protection, a piercing thing that protects, that surrounds and protects. When you think about a fence, it keeps things in and it keeps things out, right? You try to, if you're on the inside of the fence and you bump up against the fence, you know, you could get hurt just like the one on the outside of the fence, right? So it keeps you in, a fence does, and it keeps you out. And you also have the idea of a fence here with the chet, with the tent wall, which protects, but it also shows a distinction between in and out. So we have this distinction that's made between in and out, the idea of protection. We also have the idea of protection with thorns, and we have this pronouncement with the open mouth. So if we look at all of these things together, you have a pronouncement of protection times two. Protection from wrath, which makes a distinction from those on the inside, the distinction from the inside and the out. And so when we think about the Passover, the blood on the doorposts, that blood on the doorpost was a pronouncement of the protection of the Most High being applied to that household, right? And so the death angel did not come and smite the firstborn of those who had the pronouncement of protection around their doorposts, right? And so when we think about the significance that we find with what Yeshua has done for us, right? When we have faith in his blood that he shed for us, in his redeeming power, we have a pronouncement of protection around us, and a distinction is made between us and those who don't have Yeshua, right? And so we're able to see and understand with this Passover, with Pesach, with the blood that is shed for us by Yeshua, that he sets us apart. He sets us apart, right? He calls for us to be different, right? We're called out ones, right? Dedicated to him, right? We know that when we accept Yeshua as our master, right, he becomes our sovereign ruler, right? He becomes our king. The things that he wants for us to be doing, that is the things that we do, right? And the things that he doesn't want for us to be doing, we don't do those things, right? Because of this pronouncement of protection from his wrath that he puts around us, right? This distinction that he has made for us, right? And so this is something that we think about in terms of Feast of Unleavened Bread, because this thing, if we look at the feast days, this thing begins with the Passover, right? The first thing that happens is a distinction is made, right? The first thing that happens is the Most High, makes a separation between those that are his and those that aren't his, right? And then the next step now, Passover happens, and the next step now is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And so we want to go over to the scriptures and just talk about the physical thing that we do, and of course, relate that over to the spiritual. So we're going to pull up the scriptures and look at Exodus chapter 12. We'll pull this up here. Exodus chapter 12, verses 19 and 20. Let me get this out the way here. Okay, very good. Can you read that?
Yeah, Exodus 12:19. For 7 days no leaven is to be found in your house. For if anyone eats what is leavened, that same being shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether sojourner or native of the land. Do not eat that which is leavened. In all your dwellings you are not to eat unleavened bread.
Okay, very good. So we see over here the physical commandment that you physically do. That is literally referring to these things that physically exist. Bread, leaven, right? Leaven, of course, it wasn't like how we would go to the store and buy little packages of leaven, right, and yeast and add it. They most likely made bread in a different way, kind of the sourdough way, where you have a batch of leavened dough that just became leaven just from the air, organisms going in. Just like, say, for instance, if you leave a piece of bread out, it's gonna get mold on it, right? Well, that mold is like these little microbes that form, right? And so there could be these clean microbes that grow bacteria, which is yeast, right? And so this thing that they would use, of course, as just like how when you make leaven, yeast in the bread, it causes it to rise, right? And of course, they didn't have time for it to rise. They had to make these little quick breads for the movement out of Egypt. But when we think about leaven, so when we look at this thing with them, Israel not being able to eat this leaven, look how serious this is. They're talking about bread over here, right? It's bread. Right, it's a serious thing, because bread was a big part of the diet, right? So in that regard, it's serious. But it's that same being, so I would be cut off from the congregation of Israel. Like, cut off could be cut off could be like dead.
Yeah.
It could be just cast out and just expelled from, but it also could be dead, right? And so this is a serious thing over here, right? That we see over in terms of this bread. But the interesting thing is that even though there's a seriousness attached to this physical thing, bread and yeast, right? We also have to be able to look at this from a spiritual perspective and understand that the Most High is going to deal with us in the same way, if not more so, thinking about this from a spiritual perspective. Right? And so if he's going to sit up here and say that you cut off because you didn't get all the yeast out of your home, then how much more so the spiritual significance that lies behind this when we think about yeast and what it represents. Right? Yeast represents sin. Right? And we can say this because we think about what yeast does. Right? Yeast, it puffs up. Right? It causes this thing that's flat and just regular and just kind of, unformed to grow. It's funny. I just want to say my wife, she became an excellent pizza maker, right? Over the last, this COVID thing. One of the good things about COVID, she started baking some different things, while we was off with COVID and pizza, boy, I think she might got some Italiano in the way she be making these pizzas over here. But when that dough is in the bowl, like it's like just covers like the bottom part of the thing, and then I come around look at this thing a little bit later, and this thing done swelled up, and it's like overflows out the side of the bowl, like it just puffs up. It triples and quadruples in size, right? It causes it to swell and rise up. And so when we think about yeast. And it's how it pictures for us sin, that's what pride does inside of us. That's what your ego does inside of you, right? It causes you to be, what'd you say? What you gonna tell me? Like you can't tell me nothing, right? That's what pride does inside of us. And pride really is at the root, is at the foundation of any sinful act that you're going to get into. Pride is at the bottom of that. Right? If you're going against the Most High, pride is going to say, well, who cares about the Most High? I control my world. Right? If it's about you stealing some. Who cares that it's theirs? I want his thing more than him. Yeah,
I'm taking it for myself.
That's pride. I can't think of something that got to do with sin that we wouldn't be able to connect with pride, because at some point you're looking at yourself and thinking that you're more important than anything else that got to do with the thing that you're taking or the thing that you're doing. It's total selfishness. Right. It's just like these little children. These little children teach us some wonderful things about humanity. They show you pride at its fullest, especially like the little babies. They don't care what's going on. When it's time for them to eat, they ready. There's no tactful way that they say, excuse me, mommy. Can I get a little of that milk or something whenever you get a chance? No, it's not. Just I want my stuff. Nah. Just give me my stuff right now. Don't matter what's going on. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care what your schedule is doing right now. You stop that and you deal with me. That's pride, right? You don't got no thought about nobody else's situation. It's just, but that's just how we naturally do, right? And then if you was never trained if you was never trained, right? If you was never trained, you still do that, right? You don't care about what other people got going on. Here, let me get that. Yeah, it don't matter what you talking about. Let me tell you what I need to talk to you about. Like, that's at the bottom of that is pride, because you're not taking other people's situation into account before you act, right? But we're saying that these things all connect back to leaven, right? And so again, if anyone eats what is leavened, that same being shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel. And so if we get to the place where we have to remove the leaven and we don't remove it, we're going to be cut off. And so we think about, it's interesting when we look at these feast days, we have two feast days that are these 7-day feasts. The first one and the last one. It's very interesting. And when we think about the number 7, it of course gives us the idea of completeness, right? And so when we think about these feast days that are 7-day feasts, they're helping us to understand a particular cycle, right? And in these instances, in terms of Feast of Unleavened Bread and Sukkot, which is also 7 days, it's that cycle is a picture of something that we'll be doing continually, right? And so when we think about Feast of Unleavened Bread from a spiritual perspective, it helps for us to kind of exemplify the removal of pride and self and ego in the context of a cycle, right? Our life, right? If yeast is sin, and we just we do this thing for a week, but it's a picture of how we live our life. We can't live our life driven by pride and our self and our ego, right? We have to remove those things. If we live our life and our life is motivated and instigated by our pride and our self and our ego, we're going to be moving contrary to the will of the Most High. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's just how it's going to be, right? And so again, when we think about the Feast of Unleavened Bread, this cycle that includes the removal of yeast, which is a picture of pride and the self and the ego. Again, this thing that we do for a week is a picture of something that we do continually, forever, as the people of the Most High. Mm-hmm. Because again, we think about yeast as sin. Yeah. Why would we, again, from a spiritual perspective, say that we live a sinless life for a week? Mm-hmm. And that's what the Most High wants for us. It's a picture of something else. He don't want for us just to be wholly set apart just for a week out of the year. Right. It's a picture for our whole life. Mm-hmm. Right? And so we do this thing, this extensive thing that we go through. We go through all kinds of things. We looking through cabinets. We looking up under the seat cushions. We looking at the labels. We looking at all kinds of things trying to get the leaven out. But what are we doing to get that sin out? It should be the same or more. Right? We got to be going through our situation and looking at our labels and seeing where that sin is at and saying, sin right there. Yeah. Got to get it out. Get it out. But see what we do, we sit up here and we look at these labels and we say, oh man, it got some sin in it, but I didn't even open this. I ain't even opened this box yet. This is brand new. This could still be used.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put this up. Oh, but we talking about sin though.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the box. We talking about this thing. This thing that I do. I enjoy it so much. I know that I shouldn't be doing this thing, but it feels right. I need to hold on to this just a little bit longer. Matter of fact, nobody even gonna know about me doing this thing that I do. This.
They even got songs about it. If loving you is wrong,
my
I
goodness.
don't want to be right.
Oh my goodness!
He's talking about being with a married woman.
Oh
Yeah,
man! But what is that? Right? That's pride, right? And so we can live this life, and think we can't think that the Most High is giving us this week. This set apart week, and that week don't exemplify our life, right? That week does exemplify our life, but it's not like we just have a week of holiness. We got a whole life of holiness.
Yeah, we can't treat it like Black History Month.
Yeah, that is just a little set time.
Yeah.
Like we sit around here and talk about these things for this set time, but when that time's over,
yeah.
Oh man, I'm feeling back up.
Yeah.
I'm feeling back up with the yeast once this is done. Right? We can't, right? But but that's not what it's about. He gave us the commandment that we do this thing every year for a time to teach us a spiritual lesson that we don't stop doing.
What about the people who go through the process of getting the leaven out of their life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then they got people around them who got leaven all over them.
Yeah, people
and then
leaven too.
Associating with all of these people filled up with leaven.
Some of y'all people is leaven too. Somebody need to put that in the little.
I am. Like some of y'all people are leaven too.
Some of y'all people is leaven too.
Yeah. I got you.
People is leaven too.
Yeah.
You got to get them people out. They got the labels right on them. They got the labels right on them. Is that you can look at them people and look and see what they sit up there and do, and they telling you who they are. But you gonna listen to them, or you gonna say, well, I'm not gonna let that leaven affect me. Meanwhile, it's affecting you. That's what leaven does.
I mean, verse 19 talks about the one who has leaven being cut off.
Cut off. That's
removed from the people.
Some of y'all people leaven too. You got to get cut off. The people got to get cut off too. The people got to get cut off too. What's Kadar saying? How you go about purging the leaven out of your home absolutely reflects how you go about removing sin from your life. Okay, facts. Okay,
facts.
Okay, I saw how I thought it was a question, but that's a statement right there. She said something. What else she said over here? Let's see here. I had an open package of yeast that I bought 29 cents, and you almost held on to that thing for 29 cents.
Man,
and I had to think to myself, yes, exactly. So that's what we do. We do that. We do that. And so we do it with food, but you brought up a good point. We do that too with people. Right? You got to remove the leaven. And again, the Feast of Unleavened Bread is a week, but it teaches us how to live our life. And we know that because of the fact that that is given to us in this cycle of days, right? A week, a whole week. And so, we have to be able to live our lives in this way, in which we're constantly, because another thing that we think about with the Feast of Unleavened Bread, leading up to it, we're dealing with removal of the yeast. But throughout the week, we have to maintain the removal of the yeast throughout. Right? It's not just something that you do at the beginning. That's just the beginning. you make sure that you got everything out, and but the next part is making sure that don't nothing else creep in while you're inside of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And so again, if we think about this from a spiritual perspective in terms of how we deal with our life, what good does it do for you to search through your life and your entire situation and remove all of the sin if you're not going to deal with the maintenance of the sin in your life?
Right.
You're just gonna end up, you're gonna end up worse than what you was before. That's what's gonna happen, right? It's gonna be worse than before. And so this thing is not only about the removal, but it's also about the maintenance of your spiritual cabinets.
Spiritual cabinets. I like that.
Right? It's the maintenance of your spiritual. You can't let that yeast get back in after you take it out.
Right.
You know, the interesting thing about, you know, what you said about the yeast and it growing and how it puffs up is that sin, leaven, it spreads fast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like you get add a little drop in the community. The next thing you know, the whole community is overrun with it.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
And then it goes from the community into the whole world. And then you start looking at things like, wait, this is the way things are supposed to be when it's not.
Right. Yeah.
You got people living a whole life based on leaven, and they think that that's the way it is.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, it you know, the way that it is mixed in.
Yeah.
If you think about it from like you know, again from the physical perspective, when you get that, I'm not a baker, by the way.
You're not.
But I've seen many things baked. Once you mix that thing all up together, it all just looks like just one thing.
Yes.
It started off as something separate. It's something it's some foreign substance that's added to the thing. But the thing that you do is you mix that thing up, and you knead it together, and it becomes one thing. And so, like you saying, that thing, by the time that thing begins to grow, it's all intermixed with the other thing. It becomes one with the thing.
Culture.
Culture. But it's a culture that becomes the culture. Yeah. It becomes a new way of life. And so it's so important. It's so important to understand this from a spiritual perspective and the necessity for us to remove the leaven. Because this is not a light thing. There's a small list that you could make in the scriptures, in the Torah. There's a small list of things where the Most High said, as a result of you doing this thing, you're going to be cut off from the congregation of Israel. We could make a list, and it's not that big of a list of things. So this, and so in terms of priority, this is up there, right? This is up there. But again, we're not just thinking about bread.
Right.
Right, because bread is just a picture. It's just a picture of the spiritual, right? What was you trying to say?
Well, I want to bring forth where Galatians, which is Galatians 5:9, right?
Hold on.
Yeah, you can pull that up so they could see it. Thank you, sir. Right, a little leaven. Leaven's all the lump, or some manuscripts like KJV will say a little leaven. Leaven's the whole lump, which is the all of it. But I want to say that sin begins in the mind. You know, though eyes can hand such thoughts to the mind just as the ears do, yet temptation itself is no sin. That's what I was explaining to a few people. it's not a sin to be tempted. Sin is committed when a choice is made to accept the temptation that's presented to us. Our will, which is the power of choices, is a deciding factor in whether we sin or not when temptation is evident. But where does our will exist? You know what I mean? Where our choices made, are they not made in our mind? This is where our will is located, of course. And a thought in itself comes before the act. I learned that a long time ago. Which must mean that sin starts in the mind even before an act is committed or a word is spoken or something is seen. It always gives it a thought. And all it is an outward public revealing of a decision or choice already made within. Yeah. And leaven, of course, represents that sin. Dig me? I put that in right?
The
manifestation of those thoughts.
Yeah. Hey, that just made me think about this verse. Let me see this. We go over here. You didn't do nothing but say what the Bible said. Let me go over here.
For real?
Let me go over here and see. You just talking the Bible. That's all you do.
Oh, shoot. That's what I'm trying to do. Ain't that right?
Let's see here. Let me pull this up real quick. If I can find my cursor. Here we go. Hold on. I just got finished looking at it. What verse is it? James chapter 1, verse 14. Start reading for us at verse 14.
But each one...
Wait. 13, sorry.
Let no one say when he is enticed, I am enticed by Elohim. For Elohim is not enticed by evil matters, and he entices no one. But each one is enticed when he is drawn away by his own desires and trapped.
Mm-hmm.
Keep on.
Yeah, 15.
Then, when desires has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it has been accomplished, brings forth death.
Yes, very good. So when we think about this whole idea, when we talked about the idea of your pride being puffed up, your ego being puffed up, yourself being puffed up, we know that the self is the nefesh, the soul, which essentially is your appetites, right? Your appetites, right? And so when we think about our appetites, our desires, the things that we want, right? The things that we desire. But these appetites that we have can actually pull us in the wrong direction, right? And those appetites is going to bring us to sin, which brings us to death, right? I can have a desire for a thing, but I can also quench that desire. But if I allow for that desire to just continue to grow so strong inside of me that the ability to quench it becomes weaker and less when it gets to the point where I can't quench it, and then I just go and just do the thing, right? And that's how sin is birthed, right? And so, but that's leaven, though. That's this small thing that's in you that begins to grow. And then by the time it done grows, that thing done overflowed out the bowl. Mm-hmm. And so you got to quench that thing. Tirsa go over there and she quenched the leaven. She punches the thing down in the bowl. And that's what we got to do, right? Just hold on. We just talking about the Bible. We just saying what the Bible says.
Come on, bring it.
We just saying it in other ways, right?
It's a sound doctrine, that's all.
Let me see. Is this 1 Corinthians chapter 10, I think? Let me see what he said. Hold on, it might be. Hold on, let me see if it's 2 Corinthians chapter. Where's that at? Let me see here. It's somewhere in Corinthians. I need somebody to find it. I can't see it right now. Where it talks about when Paul talks about bringing his flesh into subjection. He talk about beat. He talking about beating his body, beat his body down. He says, beat my body down into subjection. Let's see here. Chapter 9. That's
1 Corinthians 9.
Ooh, that sound like it. Hold on, what does it say?
27.
Hold on, let me see. Is that the end of the chapter? 27. Yeah, yep. Yeah, hold on, let me pull that up because it's 9:24 through 27. Hold on. Yes, exactly it. That's exactly the one. 1 Corinthians. But this is what we talking about over here because these appetites, they need to be brought into, you get to bring these things in check. What did I say? Hold on, right there, 24 down to the end.
Do you know not that those who run in a race indeed all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way as to obtain it.
Mm-hmm. Hold on, you just not out here you not trying to get just the participation points.
That's what I did.
Huh? We not just out here rewarding people.
That's what I did in the great race.
I know you. I just felt like I was just part of something bigger than myself.
That's what I said.
Yeah, but you just not out here just trying to get you out here to obtain the prize.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You not playing no games out here. Good.
And everyone who competes controls himself in every way. Now they do it to receive a corruptible crown, but we for an incorruptible crown.
Hold on, these people out here. When you sit up there and you look at these sports people, and they sit up there and they train their perfect bodies. They train their perfect bodies. They get their things just to be. They don't got an ounce of nothing on them. It's just nothing but
lucre.
Just for this thing that's going fade away for nothing. But they give their whole everything they got for this thing, and that thing gonna die.
Sacrifice their body. They get broke all up, can't walk right, can't think right.
Forever. They mess their whole lives up for like this little span of time. A lot of these people sit up there and blow all that stuff. It literally corrupts their crown that they received in those little years that they shined. It literally goes into nothing. It literally corrupts. But go ahead.
Therefore, I run accordingly, not with uncertainty. Thus I fight, not as one who beats the air.
He ain't out here just shadow boxing. He doing some business with somebody, right? Go ahead.
But I treat my body severely and make it my slave, lest having proclaimed to others, I myself might be rejected.
Yes. And so that's what we're talking about over here when we think about the idea of maintaining this unleavened lifestyle. Right? Your appetite is going to say, come on, get that leaven up in here. But you got to put your body under subjection and make your body do what you want for it to do, not the other way around. And that's what the Feast of Unleavened Bread is about. You get the leaven out, but then you don't just get it out, but you keep it out. That stuff be trying to sneak in. You be like, leaven. You ain't coming up in here.
Yeah.
Right?
Want me to read that in the King James?
Yeah. Oh, what, 27? Yeah, I like it in the King James. Good.
But I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be
Oh my goodness!
Be cast away.
Wait a second. We don't. Hold on.
These little letters.
I like that better. Hold on. Let me see that. It said the same thing, but it just said in a different way.
I can't see it.
When you sit up here, wait a second. When you sit up here and you try to talk to people about how unleavened you are,
Yes.
right? If you ain't really unleavened,
Come on.
you going to be sitting up here saying how you unleavened, and people going to be like, hold up. I just seen you with some leaven just right over there. He said, let's have him proclaim to others, I myself might be rejected. Ain't nobody trying to hear your gospel of unleavenedness while you full of leaven.
Right.
Ain't nobody trying to hear that.
Right.
So you got to beat your body down so that you could be a right example for the people who you need to be out here helping.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they don't care nothing about what you got to say.
Nothing.
Hold on, man. You got leaven dripping out the corner of your mouth every time I look at you.
So there's this, not to go off, but there's this guy named Derek Jackson, right?
Oh, you said his whole government.
Yeah. He was a relationship coach, and he was
Yeah.
like, he was
Oh,
a
that
Christian,
I heard about
and he
that
was
guy.
beating guys down, like, oh yeah, if you want to cheat on a woman, this, that, and the other, you cut them off, and this, that. He was like, no mercy, no mercy. And here it is, he was cheating on his wife, and now he wants mercy. Like, oh well, everybody makes make mistakes, and this and that, and the other, and that. Man, he was a
Wow.
hypocrite, preaching to others what they should do, and he wasn't doing it himself. And now he's cast away.
That's what they do out here. But we can't be like them, right? Because the Most High said, right? If you eat the what is that? It said that same being, the one who eats the leaven, that same being shall be cut off. You gonna be cut off. The wages of sin is death. You gonna get paid.
Do you want that?
you gonna get your check. No doubt about it. If you out here in sin, the wages of sin is death. And the Most High, he got your check ready. He got your money ready for you.
Yeah.
Right? If you out here earning you keep out here. Okay, he said you supposed to be cut off.
Can I just say that?
Go ahead.
Me and Ebony, we talked to mothers and say that your kids are watching you, and Carletta too. Well, all three of us. Your kids are watching you like 24/7 when nobody's watching you.
Mhm.
They're seeing you.
They know the real deal.
So they know if you have leaven in you, even if you go around other people and act like you don't. Or you don't post it on Facebook or social media.
Yeah.
They see you in real life. So,
Yeah.
you got to make sure. When you talk about in your houses, that's in close proximity
Yeah.
to you.
We got to remember these things. We got to remember the. Wait. She said they call you out on it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they.
Well, Mom, you was just the other day. Daddy, I saw you.
So what else we see? Sin is like lies. It might start off small, before you know it, you wrote a check that you can't cash. Right? Examine daily. Right? These things is so important. Right? But again, in the context of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, not only do we talk about the idea of getting the stuff out, but we have to get the stuff out and keep it out. And the thing we talking about sin over here, right? So let's go, let me find my curse. Let's go back over to 2 Thessalonians. Hold on. Yeah. 2 Thessalonians 2:13. Okay, what's that say right there?
But we ought to give thanks to Elohim always for you, brothers, beloved by the Master, because Elohim from the beginning chose you to be saved in set apartness of spirit and belief in the truth.
Hold on. Sometimes I just want to hear it in a different way.
KJV.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just want to hear it another way. Hold on.
But we are bound to give thanks always to Yah, for you, brethren, beloved of the Lord, Because, well, I guess it's Elohim there, right? Elohim hath from the beginning chosen you to salvation through sanctification of the spirit and belief of the truth.
Okay, so this says chosen you to salvation through sanctification of the spirit. Through sanctification of the spirit. Okay? And so when we talk about here, let me see here. When we talk about sanctification, let's see here. This word is hagiasmos, which means what? Purification. That is the state of purity. Concretely by Hebraism, purify or holiness or sanctification. Right, and so when we talk about sanctification, we're talking about the process of purifying, right? The process of sanctifying, right? A state of purity or a state of sanctification. But he said, chosen you to salvation through sanctification, as if to say this has to do with the process of your salvation. Sanctification of the spirit. Interesting. We're gonna talk more about this, but we want, this is Paul talking. But we want to look at what Peter got to say. Because they different people, right? We see sometimes they didn't see eye to eye. But I want to say that in certain situations, they was saying the exact same thing. Let's see if we go over to here. 1 Peter 1 and 2. What he said?
Elect according to the foreknowledge of Elohim, the Father, through sanctification of the Spirit, unto obedience and sprinkling of the blood of Yeshua, the Messiah. Grace unto you and peace be multiplied.
This man said through sanctification, he said elect according to the foreknowledge. Elect, you've been chosen according to the foreknowledge of the Most High through, he could have just said the same thing Paul says, salvation. You've been connected to, you've been saved, you've been connected back to the Most High through sanctification of the Spirit. Through the process of purification of the Spirit. They saying the same thing over here. So there's a process of purification that comes through the Spirit. There's a process upon which one is purified or set apart or to be made holy through the Spirit. Let me see something here real quick. We go over here to Romans 8 and 4. What does that say? Romans 8 and 4.
That the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit.
He talking about Feast of Unleavened Bread. Where you not walking according to the flesh, you walking according to the Spirit. You not doing those things which are appeasing your physical appetite. You doing those things that are appeasing your spiritual appetite. You don't remove the leaven from your situation, and you're walking in unleavenedness. And when you do that, it said the righteousness of the law is fulfilled in us. The ones who do that. The ones who are unleavened. Okay? And so when we think about Paul and Peter talking about this idea of what they said, sanctification through the Spirit, they saying if we walk it, both of them is saying if we walking in the Spirit, we're doing the same thing over here. We're fulfilling the righteousness of the law as we're doing it. We're going through this process. We're going through this process of purification through the power of the Spirit. They teaching the new covenant. Peter and Paul is sitting up here they're teaching the new covenant. They didn't call it that, but the thing that they're saying is a new covenant. The thing that they're saying is Ezekiel 36 and 26.
Right.
Hold on, let me see.
Okay.
Where Ezekiel at? It's right here. Ezekiel 36. This is what Peter and Paul is saying over here, talking about this whole sanctification of the Spirit. 26 and 27. What does it?
A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you an heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and ye shall keep my judgments and do them.
He said, I will cause you to walk in my statutes and judgments and do them. Right? And so he's going to cause action in you as a result of this spiritual heart transplant that he done in you. He's going to take out that stony heart. He's going to take out that thing that caused you to desire yeast in your life. And then he's going to replace it with this unleavened heart, right? This heart of flesh, not the stony heart. That is this spirit that's in you that's going to cause you to walk in his law, statutes, and commands. Okay, and so again, Paul and Peter is talking about the life that we supposed to be living, right? As followers of Yeshua, followers of the Most High, this life that deals with the sanctification of the Spirit inside of us, right? Which is the new covenant, which is the Spirit in you, which is the law, statutes, and commandments on your heart, right? Which is causing you to walk in a life of unleavenedness, right? Hold on, let me see over here before I go too far. What does it say? This is why y'all would have others killed or cast out from the congregation, because one bad apple can spoil the bunch, right? That's like leaven, which is sin. We can get marked by y'all, right? You have to get the bad apple out, right? Whether you talking about you as an individual being the apple bunch, or you talking about a community, right? Whether it's an individual or a community, the leaven got to come out. Alright, same thing. Okay, let's keep on going over here. Let's see over here. Let's go over to. Let's see here. Oh, I want to go back to Peter. Let me see what verse that was. Back to Peter, because Peter's telling you he's preaching the new covenant, right? He don't say the words, but the thing that he's talking about is the new covenant, and the thing that he's talking about is living this life of unleavenedness, right? So let's go over here real quick. Back to 1 Peter. Back to 1 Peter. Where's Peter at? There you go. I can't see it so small. 1 Peter 1 and 2. Okay, he says sanctification of the Spirit unto obedience. It's like the natural course of events that happens. Sanctification of the Spirit unto obedience. He's talking about the new covenant.
Yeah.
The Spirit in you is going to cause you to keep his laws, statutes, and commands and do them. The sanctification of the Spirit inside of you is going to cause you to walk in obedience to what? To the Most High. Right? When we walk in the Spirit, it said, we just read it in Romans chapter 8. The righteousness of the law is fulfilled in you. The sanctification of the Spirit is unto obedience. It causes you to walk and fulfill the righteousness of the law. Okay? And again, we're talking about walking in a life of unleavenedness.
Yes.
Okay? And so what else did he say? He said, and sprinkled and sprinkling of the blood of Yeshua Messiah. Right? And so when we think about sprinkling over here, let's see what that is. In the Greek, I'm clicking on the wrong thing. Here we go. In the Greek, that word there is, I don't know what that is, but it says ceremonially sprinkling, right? Ceremonially sprinkling. But when I see that, when I see that, it caused me to think about this. Look, that caused me to think about this over here, back in Isaiah. Let's see here. Isaiah 52. What is it, 14, I think? 15. Read verse 15 right there.
So shall he sprinkle many nations. The kings shall shut their mouths at him. For that which had not been told them shall they see, and that which they had not heard shall they consider.
Okay, very good. When we see over here, when we see Yeshua, who gonna sprinkle many nations over here, just like it said up there in 1 Peter, where the sprinkling of the blood of Yeshua. That sprinkling that they talking about over here, from this Hebrew perspective, is about expiation, right? It's about the way that the priest went around and sprinkled that blood for atonement, right? The sprinkling of the blood was an action of atonement, right? And so when we think about the fact that we look at all these things going together with the idea of the sanctification of the Spirit unto obedience, and then also the sprinkling of the blood of Yeshua, his atoning power and work in your life and in your situation, that is talking about how we're over here maintaining this life of unleavenedness, right? Through the redeeming, atoning power of Yeshua that allows us to be endowed with the Spirit that brings about the process of sanctification in our lives, right? Which is us walking out the righteousness of the law through the Ruach HaKodesh. Again, we talking about unleavened bread, right? All right, let's finish up with some of these scriptures over here in the Apocrypha. Let's see here, because I don't want to talk about this too long, right? Let's see. Let's look at the Book of Wisdom.
I like that.
8 and 7. What did I say right there?
And if a man love righteousness, her labors are virtues. For she teacheth temperance and prudence, justice and fortitude, which are such things as in can have nothing more profitable in their life.
If we love righteousness, right? We get to the place where we're loving righteousness. We get to the place where we're loving righteousness. Nothing could be more profitable in our lives. We loving righteousness. We get all of these things over here: temperance, prudence, justice, fortitude. These things all come along with this idea of loving righteousness. But when we say that we love righteousness, we just talk about loving unleavenedness in our life. We just talking about hating yeast in our life, right? We just talk about living a life of unleavenedness, right? We talking about just living a life that exemplifies the message that we receive from the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It's like our life is just about, if we're out here just loving righteousness, we out here, we're just so happy to find some yeast that we could throw away. Instead of just looking at that yeast and like, I could use some of that. We doing the opposite of that. Right? We found that yeast. Oh, hold up. We got to get this up out of here. Mm-hmm. Right? This one, I like this one. It's just so short. But it's just so powerful. Hold on. 1 and 15. What does that say?
For righteousness is immortal.
That's it.
That's it. That's powerful.
That's it.
Righteousness is immortal.
It's immortal. It don't die. It don't never die. Righteousness don't.
Right.
It don't get played out. It's always popping. Righteousness is always popping.
It's like the truth, right? Yeah,
What's
truth
the
will always
same thing.
lies.
Same thing. Righteousness, truth, all that. It's always gonna be there. It ain't going no place. Right? What else we got? What you trying to say?
I just think about like when people go into sin and then like years later they come back to righteousness. They're coming back to the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It hasn't changed.
It didn't change. It still kept on going.
Yep.
You just wasn't doing
It's right there.
Right.
It's right there. Because it's immortal.
It's immortal.
Righteousness is immortal.
It's immortal. It's immortal.
It just live forever.
But guess
It's
what?
always just young
Always
and beautiful and vibrant and strong. Right? That thing's immortal. It don't never get old and decrepit.
Hey, them lies is always the same too. When they flee the arms of what's immortal righteousness and go back into darkness, guess what? They still sitting there waiting with open arms too.
Mm-hmm.
But just might be a little grip on them a little too tighter.
Here, let's go up. Let's see here. This is same chapter, verse 1.
Love righteousness, ye that be judges of the earth. Think of the Lord, think of the Master with a good heart, and in simplicity of heart seek him.
Who Israel gonna judge the earth. Israel gonna judge the earth. This verse talking to you, right? It said love righteousness. Love righteousness. I could have just said love righteousness, Israel. Right? Mm-hmm. Love righteousness. Mm-hmm. Cause righteousness is immortal. It don't never die. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you don't love righteousness, you probably loving some sin. You loving some yeast that's gonna grow, that's gonna cause you to sin, and it's gonna have your sin debt bill getting to the place where you can't pay it off. Mm-hmm. You can't never pay it off anyway. You got to call Yeshua, your bastard, to come and pay the debt.
Help me.
Come on, man. I done spent all my money. Can you come help a brother out?
But you ever deal with two different type of people? You got the conscious people and the spiritual people, right? And I deal with them both. I tell the conscious, I'm conscious. I'm like, you know what conscious is? You know when the ambulance come and get somebody lay on the ground, they crack that thing, put it in their nose, and they wake up like, where you at? In the street. They're conscious. You know where you are in life, right? Come on now. That's not being awoken. And then you got the spiritual people. Oh, I'm spiritual. Yeah, so is Satan. See, it's a difference between being conscious and spiritual. But what's even greater is being righteous. You understand? Righteous.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Let's pull this up. This thing is the last one we got over here. 26 and 28. 26, 28. What'd that say? Hold on one second. Go ahead.
There be two things that grieve my heart, and the third maketh me angry. A man of war that suffereth poverty, and men of understanding that are not set by, and one that returneth from righteousness to sin. The Lord prepares such an one for the sword.
So you gonna come and you gonna taste righteousness, and then you gonna return back to sin?
Woo.
He said the master got something for you right here, right? He got a sword for you. Such a one. All these ones. These ones who make war and suffer poverty. The men of understanding that are not set by.
Come on
and the one that got to do with what we talking about, the one that returns from righteousness to sin. He got a sword for you. That's called death. He might as well just have said the wages of sin is death. That's what he said, because he got a sword for you ready to run it through you. Because you done tasted righteousness, but then you return back to sin.
That is wild.
And so we got to be able to understand that when the lesson that we learn from the Feast of Unleavened Bread is about, it's about our life. So we can't enter into unleavened bread, getting all the leaven out, and then be eating leaven on unleavened bread. Because that's the same thing we seeing over here with this idea of returning to sin from righteousness. Okay, so this teaches us a valuable lesson. He said, he said the same soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel. And so understand, this is a physical command that's given to us in regards to bread and yeast. But we got to understand that from a spiritual perspective, when we sit up here and say that we gonna live this life of unleavenedness, if leaven is found in us after we sit up here and said that we gonna live this life of unleavenedness, we gonna be cut off from the congregation of Israel.
That's right.
It don't matter if you native to the land or you a sojourner. If you gonna sit up here and act like this is a part-time job, it's you got another thing coming. Okay, because he said you gonna get your money. You got a check coming, but it ain't the payment that you looking for. Right? It's that he gonna cut you off with that sword, right? Because you returning from righteousness to sin. You returning from life. This don't even make any sense when you think about it, like how he told it to us. You going from life to death. You going from the light and being able to see and walk around and not bump your toes or nothing like that. You able to see everything around you, all the pitfalls, everything. You see it all, to darkness. We don't even talk about those that are in darkness. We talk about those that are Israel, those that have put the blood on their doorposts, those that said that they gonna allow for Yeshua to make this pronouncement of protection from wrath and cause a distinction between us and them, and seek to get the leaven out of your life, and then you do all that work. It's a lot of work to get the leaven out.
Yes.
For you just to sit up here and just to put more leaven in.
Yes.
Yeshua's Most High said, nah, those ones is cut off. Whether you a sojourner or a native born. And so let us not forget the spiritual significance that we find inside of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. The physical part is important, but it's only important because it teaches us about the spiritual part, right? The weightier matters, which is sin.
You know what really shook me up this week, Maureen, is I've received some disturbing news about one of my associates. I'll say associate. He was a one-time enemy, but he go by he go by the name Penguin. They said that he died, right? But in the midst, right, moments before his death, he jumped in the car, burnt somebody, jumped out the car, and got smacked by another car. The car ran him over, and he died. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. This brother died in the act of sin. You know? And I used to try to tell him years ago about this truth, man. He used to tell me I ain't good enough. If you waiting to be good enough, you ain't gonna never be. None of us are.
Yeah.
You know, and just the thought of that happening, man, just make me think about 11. You know? I'm like, wow, man, I felt like I'm Highlander. You know how Highlander on the TV shows to chop people's head off and draw off their power? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that's how I be feeling, man. People be down. Well, you don't want your power? I'll take it. You know, I be feeling like that, man. It's sad, but hey, it's real. You know?
Yeah. And so, you know, we really have to take these things seriously, because of the fact that you know, the Most High takes them seriously. He's given us these things. It's not just take it or leave it. It's not, you know, just it's not, it would be nice if you would just you know, this or that, right? He's giving it to you like it is, and so we really have to again learn the lessons that you know, these feast days and times that they're you know, they're here for and that they give us. And this one again is the idea of not only the removal of sin, but the maintenance of you know, keeping the sin out, right? And understanding that the spirit inside of us, you know, the spirit in us gives us all the tools that we need to be able to be to walk in unleavenedness, right? If we just walk according to the spirit and not the flesh. Okay, so that being said, we want everybody to continue to enjoy your feast of unleavened bread. Enjoy all of the matzah. Go ahead and make your little matzah pizzas and matzah chocolate covered matzahs and all types of matzah things.
Banana pudding, matzah.
And
chicken sandwich.
All that. But we just want to just be sure that we remember the spiritual significance of these days and times as we're doing these things, okay? All right, so that being said, we want to thank everybody who came on over here. Thank you for your questions and your comments. Very good. And y'all willing, we will I guess we'll have Shabbat, and then we'll have the last day, the day after that, if the creeks don't rise. Okay. All right. That being said, we'll say Shabbat shalom and
Shabbat
Shabbat shalom.
And Chad.
And we will catch you on the next one. God bless.
God bless.